They finally got cornered and tried to get his wallet, her bag, her, kicked her.
Ready? Are we live? Yeah, we're ready.
Let's share that here with me. I haven't seen their news phase to see if there's a room big enough like this. It could be through on each sides.
Okay.
We have.
All right, everyone ready to get started? We'll call our August 15th, 2023 work session to order.
They finally got cornered and tried to get his wallet, her bag, her. That was like 5 minutes ago, me talking.
What do you do, Brad?
Travel through time somehow.
So we're gonna pause and call the meeting to order.
We don't distract anymore.
That's me talking.
Brother is listening.
Try to figure, decide to the blame.
I think it's.
Oh, really?
Oh, there we go.
This is.
We don't need that one. No. It was, we were here in the YouTube stream. Oh, yeah. Sorry.
Innocent.
All right, so let's try this again. I'll go ahead and call our
Secret.
5:45 p.m. work session on August 15th, 2023 to order at this point. Welcome, everybody. We have just a slight change to the agenda I want to go over with everyone. We're going to go ahead and reschedule Ty's presentation on the policy updates because there was a very large packet that unfortunately didn't get into.
That I apparently didn't attach. So
Yeah,
I apologize.
yeah, it's no worries.
It's been a long time in the making, haven't
Great plan too. So we'll just move that out to the next video when we have a point we can get to it. So with that, we're going to go ahead and go to item 2, which is a recap of the 2023 City Council pillars, goals, and objectives.
Thank you.
Take it away.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, council and the staff that are here. Just wanted to do an update on our 2022-2023 goals. The goals went through our last fiscal year, which would have been June 30th. So staff went through and updated all of the information. So we're going to go through it tonight. Happy to answer any questions or have any conversations we want to have. So pillar 1 is economic development. And these are the goals that we've set out in our economic development. Under 1.1, we have improved development code to promote stronger economic development. We have an A and a B. So A is the code audit and stakeholder meetings, and we've conducted industrial and commercial development and broker tours. And additional interviews are scheduled for 2024 on that one. For process amendments, we have director's interpretation of on-site plan review types to reduce approval timelines. Additional procedural changes may occur after interviews with stakeholders and design professionals. Goal 1.2 under economic development is create annexation policies and processes. So new annexation policies for Sherwood West are being drafted. If desired, staff can also adopt annexation policies for the Brookman area as well. 1.3 is the target metrics for job and housing balance. A job housing balance memo has been completed by Johnson Economics that has informed the target metric. The city should strive for 45% of the assessed property value to be commercial industrial. This is on par with balanced communities like Tualatin, Wilsonville, and Milwaukee. 1.4 is completion and adoption of the Sherwood West relook plan. Concept plan was accepted by council in July of 2023. 1.5 was the decision to ask Metro to include Sherwood West in the UGB. Work session is scheduled at our September 5th meeting to have our first conversation on that. And then annexation plan of the Tonkin employment area has been complete.
Good question.
Yeah.
On the annexation policies, when do we think we'll have the first draft of them? I'm thinking it'd be great to see that as we look at. We have a work session next month on urban growth boundary. And I think that's going to be a key thing we want to understand.
Yeah, it's sort of important to understand.
Yeah.
One before you make a decision on it.
Yeah, if the policy will play into the decision making for Sherwood West, then we can get you a draft. Eric is working on it right now. I think it's pretty close, so I don't think it would hurt to share it with you as part of the work session. So yeah, we'll give it to her.
Yeah, and we don't necessarily have to have it finalized.
Right, that's what
before the decision, but
yeah, sure.
having a good understanding of the direction we're heading would be helpful. At least that's my opinion.
Yeah. I had a question also on that same page. The jobs housing balance memo has been completed. I don't recall, has that come to us? Have we seen that as a council?
No, I don't think
Oh, okay.
it has come forward to council yet.
I think you might be also looking at it, that, basically what it says, it's not a very long memo, but it basically looks at other cities, and I think it demonstrates that cities that have a strong industrial or commercial base really have, as we would expect, would have more funds in the budget for other activities, for services, that kind of thing. And it looks at Milwaukee and looked at, I don't have it in front of me.
It says right here, 12th and Wilsonville, Milwaukee.
Yeah.
That's fine. I just didn't remember having seen it. So eventually it'll come to us, I'm assuming. Okay.
Do you know what our current percentage is for?
Yeah, it's about 18-ish%, the last number that I saw. Wilsonville's in the range of about 40%. I think, I've never seen a number for Tualatin, but I think they're a little bit over 50%. You can imagine they have a lot of manufacturing industrial. And then Wilsonville, of course, has strong technology base.
So we're
we don't.
18% manufacturing industrial, which is
Yeah,
very, very low.
very good.
Manufacturing, industrial, commercial,
Yeah.
Commercial.
everything.
Yeah, non-residential.
Yeah, so including IT, it's just public, I think.
So it'll be interesting to see what that percentage is when all these buildings get full.
I think we wanted to get that memo. I think it's at a point where it can be shared. We'll go through Keith on that to make sure, before we send it to council, but we wanted to get that memo for you guys to inform Sherwood West as well.
Yeah.
Kind of playing into that decision making.
Well, it's great too, because when we first discussed changing gears to economic development, we talked about creating KPIs that we can look at. And that's a key one to track and monitor.
Is there a way to estimate what the percentage would look like, assuming Sherwood Commerce is full, TEA is full? Is there I guess a rough estimate?
Very, very rough.
Yeah, totally rough.
Yeah,
Like
very rough.
we might be about 23 now or something,
Yeah.
Alright.
That, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Alright. Sorry.
Pillar 2 is infrastructure. Listed the goals of the infrastructure for this on here. 2.1 was improvement to development, most stronger economic development. You kind of see this as a duplicate of 1.1, see that pillar. So pillar 2.2 was a Sherwood West 99 pedestrian bridge. 100% design was completed on June 23rd, and project is this month. It'll go out for bid. Council authority for construction contract late October or early November of 2023. I think we currently have it on our second meeting in October for consideration. 2.3 is the Cedar Creek pedestrian tunnel. So I won't read everything on there, but just feasibility and floodplain mapping study projects have been completed. And just kind of an update on where we're at in terms of that. We weren't granted the 600,000 lottery funds for preliminary design. And then the 30% tunnel design study has not been started yet.
We should probably have a conversation, since we didn't get the 600K on other ways of funding that. Because just waiting till next year, hoping to get it is probably not a good strategy. And it will only go up the longer we wait.
The complete Sherwood broadband fiber to the home, and this build out, this project is ongoing. We'll have a further update to the council later on. 2.5 was complete the YMCA agreement. So we have a purchase and sale agreement that's been completed. We're currently in our due diligence with closing expected in the winter of this year, maybe early next year. Purchase and replacement of antiquated software. Again, I don't necessarily want to read everything, but we have a finance system, major software replacement. Meeting in early 23 to current finance software to vendor to complete some necessary upgrades. A small service agreement was signed in May of 23 with finance vendor to review current customizations. We'll also refine the price and scope of the finance software update. And meet on 8.9 with the vendor to review the bid for software update project. Decision to move forward will come. So we're currently working on that project right now. So more updates as we come on. Move forward.
Will that really be a 2 to 3 year upgrade process? The yellow dot.
This is just the time frame we initially had, but we're moving forward on it a little bit faster, so
It'd probably be like a 6-month thing, or is it a?
I would
don't
say
know
it'd probably be a year
how-
process.
Okay.
I mean, it's already been a year because these are goals that
When
started
you have to
last
shove it
year.
in
so.
between budget season, audit season and all those things.
Right.
It takes a while.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine.
Reconfigure 2.7 is reconfigure existing software to adapt to current needs. We're waiting for a vendor update for existing software, beginning to evaluate current building department software capabilities, to see that they will comply with House Bill 2415, which requires 24/7 access online for all permits. And we're in discussion with current and other software vendors for internal meetings set up in mid-August, discuss needs of software and demos to follow. So one of the things we are spending a lot of time is looking at how we can upgrade our technology, upgrade our systems, and to be more thoughtful in how we're doing it. We recently installed a new HR system, Bamboo HR, which is designed to help us with some of the HR needs and reports and data as well. So one of the things that we recognize is just a need to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, and just for your information, there's the state of Oregon about 5 years ago signed a contract with a major permitting system provider out there, and you can get permitting software and it's integrated through the state with training. So this, so you're aware of that.
Yeah, we're gonna look at options.
Yeah. I've talked to a lot of people who don't know about that, so just something sure you guys.
And we're tying that into the website at some point, or
I
no?
think I mean, the idea would be eventually, but we don't know anything about their system and what the time would look like, but definitely we tend to look like it at minimum, but hopefully time
Yeah.
integration. Bill, we haven't talked to them yet, so.
Right.
I wasn't aware that the 2415, is there a time frame? Like, is there a deadline that we have to have that up and running?
January 1st, 2025.
Oh,
Is that an unfunded mandate?
Yes.
Yes.
imagine that.
Yes.
Address remote workforce needs. We have a draft plan completed. We just need to implement at this point. Implementation plan for Parks Master Plan, the Parks SEC methodology has been updated and adopted. And 210 has developed shovel-ready fiber expansion, and this work is ongoing. Any questions about Pillar 2? Pillar 3. I'm gonna move the screen around so we can see everything. Pillar 3 is livability and workability. There are goals that we've listed underneath for this pillar. 3.1 was consider obtaining an age-friendly city certification. The community survey closed on June 30th of 2023. It was a year-long process. Staff and senior advisory board will have a recommendation application to consider this fall. 3.2 was design concepts for a single-story flex building on the lot of the Art Center. The item was budgeted in this 23-24, but as of June 30th, no work had begun on that. Design plan for Cedar Creek Trail amenities. Project started in July of 2022 by ordering pet waste stations, signs, garbage cans, and enclosure. Some items have been installed and some are scheduled to arrive later. In December 2022, once here they'll be installed. Kristen, we know kind of where we're standing on that one, more recent on that.
So we talked about the actual feeder trail as well as.
I think we've gone and maybe need to follow.
Yeah.
3.4 is public art in the roundabout. The RFP process has been completed. Artist has been engaged and is finalizing concept and design of art pieces for Oregon Street Roundabout. 3.5 is Build Festival Plaza. We had a ribbon cutting on June 14th, and we're finalizing the punch list items on that project right now. And create a public arts fund to utilize for grants. That was completed in the 22-23 budget. 3.7 is monitor housing, track progress on issues, actively participate as needed with legislative and rulemaking committees. Develop an annual house report on housing. Going forward, staff will provide an annual report on new housing units constructed each year to the city council to meet that goal. and participate in rulemaking and monitor and track changes. Staff has tracked housing legislation from 2023 and provided testimony that aligned with the council plans.
It's a busy, long
It
session.
was a busy session and I really appreciate staff and Eric's help on that.
Staff was huge. Yeah, they did a great job. And just for everybody's, that work has not stopped. Because there's a lot of bills that did not pass in the last session, and we know we're coming back in this upcoming short sessions, the legal and cities is engaged. Eric's already been helping out and providing information, but a lot of focus on the infrastructure we need to build housing, especially sewer infrastructure, because the sewer's not there, you can't build a house.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're engaging with the league on that and helping to advise Salem.
Hey, I know we have lobbyists in Salem. Do they send us like a monthly report or anything?
So I've asked,
To be copied on it.
they're not during the long session, but I asked them when they send out reports that they send it to all council, and I don't think they've had one since the last time.
Okay, all right, I just.
Kim brought it up and it's a really good point, so you should
Right,
see it.
okay.
Good thinking, Kim.
Employees,
Yeah, I mean, there's a lobbyist for all of council. It shouldn't just be one, two people getting to see the report.
Well, and frankly, I know we put a lot of weight on the staff, and I feel like we're also paying these other people who are in those sessions, and they may not be on all of them, but they also may know a bit more about some of this stuff as well. So I just want to.
Oh, and our lobbyists do an amazing job, but.
Oh, yeah.
But we do have to feed them data, and that's mainly where staff comes in
Yeah.
on this stuff, but they. So far, they've been great, but and we should be able to collect past reports. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe we can get the one at the end of the session.
The session close one, yep.
Yeah, maybe even this.
Yeah, it's been a while since I've seen it.
What are the odds that there's gonna be a short session? Let's all put some money on it and see about that, and then.
I think not.
Well, there was,
And then we can have that conversation about the state house and the beds too.
okay. Employee city volunteer recognition and appreciation programs. I really appreciate the work the HR and Lydia have been doing on this. Ongoing efforts for the volunteer program as well. We held an appreciation on April 18th for a city council meeting. We have an employee fair happening in September 20th, talking about our benefits and signing up for health benefits, but we've managed to get PERS and Mission Squared and basically all of our local benefits employees to have conversations with representatives from all those organizations. So excited about that program. Lydia, anything you want to add to that? Did I miss anything?
No, we're aiming at the total employee package rather than purely benefits. So we're doing, it's a highway to health, wealth, safety and well-being. So we're engaging ourselves with our safety committee in that to try and just re-emphasize the important role of that safety committee and to try and stay bring them to forefront too. So we're going to try and get some local vendors in addition, but the key is that we're trying to look after our whole employee and their family members. So we'll be opening the event up to anybody who's covered under that person's insurance.
And that's just for our employees. It's not to try to attract more employees.
No, so
It's not a job fair.
yeah, this one's not a job fair. This one's around just making sure that people are utilizing to the best effect what we already provide.
Yeah, all right.
So like our health provider will be there to
Yeah.
answer questions and.
Yeah, so we have 14 different vendors there. So we have Regents, Kaiser, Willamette Dental, Delta Dental, Canopy, who is our employee assistance program provider, our deferred compensation provider.
Yeah, it's great because like, I know in my husband's world, like he has things that I have no idea what these are, but
Right.
like what benefits we get from it. So.
Yeah, and benefits that, we pay for just to make sure that everybody's utilizing to best effect.
Yeah.
What we're already providing.
Great.
3.9 was a program to encourage innovation and creative solutions and ideas. We have had a couple of meetings on this with some ideas. We haven't yet come with anything concrete yet, but still working on that. 3.10 is to involve the community and other government partners in discussions on the importance of community wellness and mental health awareness. This was a year program and we worked on monthly suggestions of financial health. And there's the programs we've talked about already in that
So these are all one-year deals. From the ones that have already occurred, like 310. So the draft is, we've started the program, or we've drafted the program, we haven't initiated it yet.
You know, we've completed the program and we're just going through a draft each year of a new program to continue with what we're doing. So it's just a yearly type program.
Yeah, but this one's two parts, Collector, if I may interject. So there's the community side to it, and then there's the internal community in terms of the employees. And then the kind of third part, I guess, is working with the other government agencies. So I know Chief Allen was speaking at a wellness conference this past week with a number of other agencies there. I did the same a couple of months ago. More locally, so it's a lot in one objective covering a number of different things, so we have to kind of just continually almost keep it in draft mode to make it relevant.
And at what point on these points do we find out, do we wait for another year, or how do we know if staff likes what we're doing or doesn't like what we're doing?
So part of the bamboo system has two different motivation elements to it. One is net promoter, which is used pretty widely throughout the United States. So we have the ability to use net promoter. And then we actually have the ability also to do a motivation survey in there. Unfortunately, we don't have a base level to take it from, but once we've gone through this program with open enrollment, we can push that first survey out and then we can build year on year. But unfortunately, we don't have a base level, other than people saying they feel like they're appreciated.
Yeah. You need to do that first survey.
Yeah,
That will be kind of, yeah.
Thanks.
Public safety is pillar 4, the goals under public safety. Funding additional SRO, this was a high priority for the new school district. Hybrid SRO will begin work in January of 2023, and then the chief has been working on the staffing. Any update you want to provide on that?
As far as where we're at currently, I think we are have 4 offers out right now to cover our retirements, pending retirements in that SRO position. So all things considered, we have 2 starting next week. And then hopefully 2 more in October.
Are these laterals or there'll be?
3 should be laterals, 2 for sure, 1's an internal reserve. And depending on how things shake out, it could be 3 laterals.
Now our reserves are back down, we'll be back down to 2.
We'll be back down to 2.
We're actively,
Two.
I know.
we are actively recruiting now, so it's working.
But that's the
Yes.
purpose of that.
It is.
Great.
Uh,
Oh, I jumped to the next.
Yes, and so, I mean, city had 2 new reserve officers in April to bring the 3, but like we just said, we anticipate one of those may potentially go into full time, which is what we would like from our reserve program to be. And then work with Sherwood School District on a safe routes to school. We discussed this in our April 20th joint meeting. I know that Joy has already been having conversations, and we will have more information coming to council on that as we continue to work through that. But what we have seen is the school district has been engaged and supportive and active in the safe routes to school. And Dr. Lyons has been really supportive of the program as well. So we've seen school district be really responsive as we start to have those conversations. Do we have a, yeah, jump in.
So it's, I know they have on their agenda for tomorrow night, a resolution for safe routes to school. So the partnership, and then we have a consent agenda scheduled for you guys on September 5th. So if both those get passed, then I think that frees up the staff to start the work.
Do we have a understanding of kind of the grant cycles and kind of working back from that in terms of projects that we might want to?
I think as soon as both of them get passed, and I think we can work with Joy and have her start looking into the grants.
Programs to recruit, retain officers. We developed a list of outreach methods, including more variety on job boards. I think the chief just talking about the success we're having in our recruitments, especially since I'm still hearing from neighboring agencies, the difficulty they're having. I think the sabbatical program has really been appreciated and is starting to take off. I went with one officer who was 2 days prior to sabbatical, and I've never seen someone so joyful to be in a meeting with me before. So
Yeah, he was happy when info went in one ear, out the other. I'm out of here.
I heard from one who just said it was absolutely amazing and refreshing and.
Yeah, I think we're on number 5 right
I was gonna ask, what's the report of the people who have come back? Does it have the mental health effect that we were hoping it would have of, hey, I'm ready for another 5 years or whatever?
I think so, yeah, everybody, and we haven't, and I know Lydia's actually working on we want a pre and post survey to capture this, but just in the conversations I've had, yeah, absolutely, everybody's been extremely excited about, I mean, enthusiastic about coming back and being involved and engaged, and I've seen changes in people, I mean, just, yeah, positive things that's great. So,
Well, I mean, that's been huge, but you guys are doing an amazing job, because when I talk to my peers about in the region, struggling to hire police officers, you're way ahead of the curve.
yeah, we've been fortunate, yes, yeah. Yes.
Yeah, there were a couple stories definitely this last weekend. From other cities and struggles.
Identify and complete infill for sidewalk improvements in ADA. I know Craig's been working on this, started work with the Parks and Facility portion late November. The sidewalk and ramp started in March. And then the project should be wrapped up in the end of October 2023 and ready for implementation. Craig, anything else on that?
Sidewalks about 20%.
Didn't we get a ruling on eating?
Yeah, I'll get there.
I'm sorry.
That is foreshadowing. Develop an action plan with the county to improve safety on county-owned roads. It hasn't started and we haven't allocated any staff time yet for that, but we know it's a project we need to work on. And then the Traffic Safety Committee to review speed limits in cities. What we've talked about in this is the ODOT response to lowering the speed zones as of June 30th, which is technically these ended, we hadn't heard. Since then, we have heard that ODOT has approved our request to lower the speed limits. So on both, yes.
To what speed?
35,
35,
5.
5 miles an hour on each.
Fiscal responsibility is pillar 5. The goals are beneath. Federal grants and monies. We received the 3 million for construction of Ice Chase Drive for.
Sorry to keep interrupting, but it was our request to lower it by 5.
Other grants are actually being pursued. Pursue state grants and monies. We applied for business Oregon grant for Dalkey Corridor in the spring of 2023. Engineering is work done on 3 areas, but additional areas are being worked on now. And then see pillar 5.1. Banking RFP, we've had conversations about that already with David and I have been working on that. We anticipate doing that later this fall. And organizational assessment and review on delivery of service is in staff review at this point.
What is that last one mean again?
Citizen engagement.
No, organizational assessment or review on delivery of services.
It's just an internal review of our processes.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And part of this is also the community enhancement program that we're working on as well in terms of, you know, our website and our outreach and our communication. So all of that, I think, is going to be part of that as well.
How do our business processes integrate with our citizens and businesses?
Pillar 6 is citizen engagement. Those are the goals underneath there on that. Create a new website platform and enhance social media. Work session held. Staff was meeting with stakeholders, complete scope of the RFP. The RFP work has currently been completed and we've having conversations now with the 2 individuals who were appointed by the council to review that. So we anticipate that going out. That kind of goes back to that previous goal we talked about as well. Building a broadband as it relates to customer service and workload, and the utility building sent out broadband bills to rural customers and city customers on May 4th. So this has been completed.
On that goal,
On
there we go, the broadband, is adding the broadband and broadband billing services to the current staff, is that sustainable?
Is it extra work? Is it sustainable? Is it the? I heard rumblings from somebody we lost that it was, you know, hey, we're getting extra work and we're. And I, in my opinion, I'm with you. It's just an extra line item on a bill but is there extra work that we're adding to them that we're not compensating for, or we're saying, hey, we're putting 10 pounds in a 5 pound?
I don't
bag?
think this was on the billing. I think what we are is we've trained our customer service people to be able to answer broadband questions and billing questions and if service is available to them. So that's something that we've been working on for
Okay,
really for the last year. And
I'm
so,
not saying work later or.
no, it's just, it's part of the customer service now, so that if someone calls in and asks about Sherwood broadband, they can handle, basic questions. They can look up if service is available. They can set that up if they need
Okay.
to. If it gets to be more complicated, we still advance that to Brad and his
Yeah.
team to answer more complicated. But what we have for billing is just to say, hey, your customer service. So if someone calls in, and since it is now part of the utility bill, so if you have Sherwood
Yeah.
broadband, it is part of your overall utility bill to be able to answer questions about that and to provide just basic levels. Here are the services we offer. Here's, depending on what you're trying to use, we have the different levels that we have. So you can answer just the basic questions of anybody who calls
It's the
in.
level one stuff. It's not tech support, troubleshoot,
Correct.
what's going on or any of that stuff.
Right.
Okay,
And did-
perfect.
Did we change the bill to a city services bill?
Yes.
As opposed to a utility bill?
Yeah.
Good.
That's one, with broadband on.
Okay, great.
So 6.3 is the utilize modern communication tools. I think again, this relates to that RFP that we talked about, and 6.1, that enhanced communication that the council would like to see. And then track responses, analyzes, and requests through customer relations and management system. Not started, but again, this is in the capabilities that are included in the scope of work for that citizen engagement website project. 6.5 is consider engagement communication specialist. This was approved in the 2023-24 budget, and we are meeting right now to go through the job descriptions. And develop to hire that position. Develop a comprehensive approach to doing surveys, enables organizations to improve both the strategy and execution. Not started, but again, this would be in that scope of work that we're looking at for that RFP for the citizen engagement website project.
On the engagement communication specialist, job description worked great, but have you like mapped out kind of what you want this position doing and
We met
kind
this,
of that high level?
we met this week to start having those conversations. Yeah. So today's Tuesday, we met yesterday. Continue to refine our marketing materials for industry is something we haven't started, and refine branding is something we haven't started.
We do have branding out there.
This was of the 22-23 goals. I don't know if that's on the 23-24 goals.
But if this was a 2 to 3, did it drop off if we didn't do it?
Well, as we went through the goals in our last session in January, I'll have to look and see. I don't remember if that one made it through or not. There were some changes. Not too many. Greatest city statement on DEI has been completed and adopted. Review and update hiring processes of DEIA with transition work. We haven't started this yet. And consider youth advisory or similar. Staff has had discussions with school districts on a joint youth advisory board. And the framework is being developed right now. I did receive an updated draft from Dr. Lyon today, so we're still working on that as well.
Awesome.
But the goal to have that in when school starts, first day of school is August 31st, so.
I got to present to the youth leadership class in high school. And because we just had that work session, I talked to them about it, and a whole bunch of them raised their hand. How do I apply? How do I get involved? There was a lot of interest from the kids over there. So.
Did we, in your conversations, I think I talked to you about with one of our Friday meetings, that I had a resident catch me right in the middle of the street at Cruisin', because they read about that in the Archer. And she says, how will we be reaching out to students who are not part of the Sherwood School District? So homeschool students, charter school students, making sure that that board is open to all.
Yeah, I think we can have that conversation with Dr. Lyon.
A couple of the students actually sent me a draft of some stuff they've been working on as well.
Please share.
Send it your way.
Yeah. So that's the update on the goals. deliverables. Any questions, comments?
I would encourage if we're looking for that community engagement person. And I don't know what you're thinking about for a job description, but it might be helpful to have them be again, it depends totally on the person, but to be a advisor or something to that youth committee, because when you talk about, can I find somebody who can engage youth? That's a tricky skill set to have in somebody who is also a community, but I also know that you don't want to let youth loose with the city account or whatever, but it might be a good way to say, hey, let's, you know what I mean? Like they may be the city employee that is on that board or whatever to know that, because that we could use them as a magnifying force on engaging through the digital means. So anyway, let's figure that out, but it looks great. I'm impressed at how much green there was on this in terms of stuff that was done. Tired me out.
But a bunch of them, we've started, well, it's a bunch of one-year things we've started, we don't have a completion date. Or an estimated completion date. So the one-year items that are still open, I would like to see that.
Yes. Right, but there was a lot that was closed, that's all I was saying, that there was either progress or closed out.
Yeah, I'm happy to see the progress on most everything.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
What do you think of the concept of, are you planning on doing this quarterly?
Yeah, I think one of the things I wanted to have a conversation is, how to do this, should we do it in a work session? Would you like something like Bruce does, where we just send, an update every 3 months on where we're standing, what would be the best, they're your goals, and I want to make sure that we're having the conversation so that you're kept up to date, but what would be the best way is, I think, one of the questions I would like to ask.
I'm a big believer, and I know I've talked to Doug about this a little bit, that I feel like we might have. And I know why we have so many, but if we want to get progress and say, hey, work on these and close them. We may need to laser focus them and say, here's what we want for the next, 3 months to 6 months, and then, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like when we say, here's everything that we want, it's difficult for staff to prioritize, and it feels like we're asking for more.
Part of our goal setting process, we get the big bucket of goals.
Yeah.
And we get feedback from staff on what they can achieve or not achieve, either with existing staff or adding staff. So from my perspective, when we whittle it down and put it on the plan, and this is the achievable list, sometimes stuff happens through the course of the year that causes delays, and we adjust and we pivot. But
When we voted on and approved is what.
That's the intent during goal setting.
It is, but so, and I stayed pretty quiet during the last goal setting, but when I talk to staff, I feel like I'm hearing that effect of what you just said of what is able to be accomplished with your existing staff or by adding staff. I don't know that we're getting.
great, so then
Right, no, I know.
That's not our problem, that's his problem.
Well, no, not really, because if we're still saying, well, you still have to do 50 goals. That feels like we as a council are asking for, I think, too much.
So here's my take on it.
Because we don't do that in software, we say, hey, we can only work on this, right?
The key here is communication. The question was, how often should we meet? What format should that be in? I think regular work sessions to talk about where we're at, because that's where you can come to us and say, hey, we're running into delays. And we can help prioritize, to your point.
Okay.
During the year. And I think
Hopefully
that
staff is getting
back
that.
and forth is really important, because we want staff to be really comfortable to say, hey, this is bigger than we thought. What do you want us to do? Right? Or
That, yes.
Or ODOT is dragging their feet and they won't get it done. And we might say, we'll call Courtney and get help on that.
Yeah.
So it's a chance for staff to come to us and say, hey, this isn't working out. We can change plans, or we can accelerate. We got more time on the other side of it. But I think that regular communication from a policy and goal setting is really important. Yeah.
So how do we do that though? How do we get so that, because in the session, we were all sitting at that table, we had most of the department heads that were sitting over there. I didn't hear a lot of, you know, horse trading going on with the people who were actually doing the work, right? And so it felt like we were setting the goals and we were getting head nods, but it wasn't an engaged, like, informed goal setting from both sides. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like it was a little.
Great, so let's see what happens next year.
There are
Okay.
goals versus the city staff and city goals. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, but
Which
part of it is, I understand why, hey, we're setting the vision, right? But we also. That, what you just said, Tim, is key, where I need to hear from the people if they say, hey, what you're asking for means. 10 head count, and by the way, broadband, like, we have reasons why we can't hire one head count, right? There's.
Well, we put them on the list, and then Keith and staff went and put deliverables into them after the fact, and then brought them back to us.
And I think that,
Okay.
that process works, but the communication throughout the year
Yeah,
is really important.
If you don't get a quarterly updates or regular updates on projects is an important part of the process. If you don't, then you're right. You get through a year and you say, oh, nothing happened on this. Oh, well.
Is there, so let me ask this question, do we feel like as a council that we are getting the full story, or we're getting only the green light stuff, right? The stuff that is going well, right? Are we?
I would hope we're not being presented something that's not the full story.
Are you talking about goal setting itself?
Well, not just goal set, but like I worry that some, okay, but we can have a different discussion about the process of how we're doing the goal setting, but because it feels like we are saying, do this with the exact budget or slightly bigger budget than you have. And we're getting remarkable results for what we're doing, but I feel like that gap of, I'm not hearing back from people this thing that you just said. We've done the analysis, and we're not able to do it for the following reasons. And I want people to feel comfortable saying that, and it's essentially saying, can you please reprioritize these or drop something off the list? Because, the bridge is taking 10 times longer than we thought it would, and it's so much more work. And I have to do all these other things as well. Like, I don't hear that back. And so I'm like, wow, this is the first place I've ever been where there's never been a reprioritization of goals.
Well,
Is what I feel, which is strange.
You're stating the problem in an interesting way, but I tend to agree with you. I think that communication during the year, how many years did we try to even get this in place? Before you were here, Keith.
So
So
intent has been for years of getting quarterly updates on goals, so we know where we're at. So that we understand when things get bogged down for COVID, through something in the bucket to cause all sorts of challenges with goals, for instance.
I think we're making good progress.
Oh, yeah.
I think we have more work to do.
I think if there's concerns, I would hope everything flows through Keith to us, right? Because staff isn't our staff, right? So I would hope they would go to Keith and Keith would communicate that to us. If that's not happening, that would be a concern. Or are you saying, when we have these updates, do you want all the department heads that seat at the table where they can give their input?
Well, frankly, it was super useful to have them here and give additional color, right? So that was nice.
Can I try to reframe
Sure.
it maybe a little bit where I think you might be going? I think you and I have spoken about it a little bit. I wasn't here last year because I was uptown. But is there a desire to have staff more involved with the goal setting process? To have a say at that onset?
Right, but that's about how we set our goals, right? That's a
Right.
different discussion, which I do think, frankly, the people that are the feet on the streets, they know best kind of, hey, this is something that we would like to do to make life better, or, whatever in our thing. And we can say yes or no to it, right? But oftentimes, they know where the road bumps are, right? I'm saying that assuming that the input has happened and all the leadership is on board with the goals, right? That the ongoing reprioritization and updates and, you know, like, let's say one of these things that you were updating us on today said, hey, if we still want this on the list, it's gonna be $500,000 more. Do we have the mechanism right now to say, hey, should we do this? Should we keep doing, you know what I mean? Like, we don't really do that as near as I can tell. And so I'm just wondering, is that, am I missing something? Is that happening somewhere else? Or should it be happening at this thing in 2 months' time or 3 months' time?
So you're right, and we're not seeing updates on goals as frequently on all the goals. Some goals, yes, other goals, no. And as the mayor commented, that we didn't get the grant to do the study, so therefore nothing's happened, which is reflective of the goal. And then the mayor commented that the prospect of having a work session to reevaluate that to see if we want to try to find resources and do it, and still do it in a different way. But since we didn't get the resources, that step didn't happen, which that's perfectly viable and clear of reflective of the process for that goal.
So Keith, can I tell the person whose job it is to respond on that? Don't worry about it until we meet again. You know what I mean? Like, not me, you know what I mean? Like us as a council, can we say, put a pause on that? Don't stress over that goal.
It says literally in the sentence.
No, I understand. I'm just, okay, I'm not saying me literally, I'm just saying, again, this is from my day job where I don't want people to worry about things that they think they're gonna be graded on at the end of the year. And in reality, they don't have any control over that goal. And so I'm trying to make them feel empowered for hitting their goals, right?
Keith, staff, if there's a concern, do they feel like can they come to you?
I mean, I think this is what we're trying to work on, is to have more conversations so that we know. I mean, I think the issue is when you have 50 goals, it's a lot of goals, right? So, you know, can we say these are the key ones that we really want to focus on, and here's some of the other priorities? And I think we've been trying to do that. I think that's what Taylor's trying to get at.
Isn't that why we put some in the 1 year, the 2 to 3, and the 3 to 5?
That was what the idea behind it is,
Yeah.
trying to get timeframes on
Yeah.
it, but.
I think the challenges that come up fall into different categories, right? So you have the prioritization problem as we're moving forward, kind of the big picture. We didn't have the money. What are we going to do now? And I think regular meetings to go through this, talk about those, having a section in this that talks about here's our priorities. Do we need to adjust? I think would be good. That's kind of a department level thing too, because obviously not everyone's working on everything.
Yeah.
But I also think there's more tactical things that come up where we can't wait for the next quarterly meeting where, I don't know, you know.
Yeah, there's grant deadlines.
There's a grant deadline or a new program just came up out of the feds that we can take advantage of, and we can't wait next quarter to talk about it. It could be something as tactical as, hey, we need council's political help to go out and talk to folks in the region or talk to Salem and say, hey, you guys are dragging your feet. We need you guys to get this done. And here's why. That tool has been very effective in the past. So I think there's several different channels of communication. I think what we're talking about here is the prioritization, having regular meetings where we go through that, making sure we're on board. I mean, does that sound reasonable to you,
I think
Keith?
it sounds reasonable. And I think, you know, we talked about like the Dalkey, that was part of a goal. It wasn't a deliverable, right? And the opportunity came, credit to Bruce and Eric for really taking advantage of that. That really it fits with that goal. So it's
opportunities that
Yes,
pop up through the
opportunities.
year.
But now that's, you know, taking staff time because that wasn't something that we necessarily anticipated. So I think to the point, it's, okay, now do we need to reprioritize where some of the other things are? Because we had an opportunity that I think is absolutely critical to, and it meets, you know, what we all felt like as a staff, this council's goals. All right, so now this is new, and now a project that is going to be taking some staff time at all levels. And so, you know, this is.
So we take some, we got to give it someone else.
Give it somebody else,
Have that conversation.
So how about this? I like your idea of adding essentially a slide maybe for the next time that is here's where we need some decisions made from staff or from council, right? Here's, you know, whether it's prioritized between these things or find a bucket of money for $600,000, you know what I mean? Like if there was some of those so that I knew, oh, I'm getting feedback from the people who are actually trying to do the goals as to whether or not they're enabled and empowered, or they feel like they're just getting dumped on and asked to do stuff that's almost impossible, right? And so I want, you know, and again,
There should be nothing on the list that is deemed impossible, otherwise he's not doing his job.
Well,
Some of your words and choices here, I disagree with and struggle with, but the intent of having regular updates, understanding the lay of the land is a good thing. And when there's opportunities of during the course of the year to say, hey, do we want to take advantage of this opportunity? Okay, then it impacts this and this and this. I think that's valuable.
I think that's where the decisions we make at these quarterly updates, right?
yeah, okay, I just, and by the way, when I say impossible, everything's possible with a 20-hour day and everybody working overtime and burning through, right? And so that's why that's the only thing I'm concerned about, right? Is that if I'm not talking about theoretically possible, I'm saying with the way that it, you know, and again, I just, because I don't see, I guess, the problems that are being run into on these, I'm.
So are you aware that there are problems? Is there something that some of us aren't aware of or something?
I have heard that there is a lot of competition for resources because there are so many goals, right? And so, and by the way, I think it could be a communication issue. It could be a training or empowerment or something for one-on-one. I'm just saying that, again, in my professional life, I meet monthly with my stakeholders to figure out what the prioritization is, and I adjust them and change them and everything else. And so the fact that this is now happening the first time I can think of in about a year, and we're not having that second conversation about, okay, are these still our goals? Are these still the things we want to do? And I know that, you know, that's not really the cadence that we do, but I feel like if we're going to say these are the goals from the council, we've got to make sure that all the people that are doing the work feel empowered to come back and so anyway, I just I don't know, I'm not going to keep pushing it if I'm alone on this, but I feel like
You have an absolute valid point on the importance of regular updates. So we understand where we're at, we understand the challenges and
we can adjust
And-
if need be, we can
you're right.
adjust funding, there's all kinds of things.
The staff has done a great job this past year, but it's also true that, you know,
Okay.
council's not been kept up to speed on where they have or haven't been going.
Okay, right.
All right, anything else? I was gonna suggest one other little thing. It would be great to have a bucket, so every time, and it's a bucket for the next visioning session. That if we have some ideas that pop up, that we can just throw them into the bucket, it's not for debate at that point. But so we kind of track them, so when we get into our next visioning session, we have that reference.
I think if we want to change the visioning session, I've been through 7 now. Where we've had staff at the table, staff not at the table. Like 3 years ago, we had staff at the table, and then I heard that they felt it was awkward because it's not their goals, it's council goals. So why are they? I want to do it. We want to utilize staff the best way possible. And if I would want them at the table, but if they felt awkward about it for whatever reason, because they say these aren't our goals, these are council goals, but they're there to answer the questions when we have questions about a project.
Yeah, it's a good point, I think, but it's a really good point, and I think we have to be careful with our words here, because goals are counts, right? We set goals, and goals may encompass, one goal may encompass 4 projects. And it's that project level, I think, is what you're really talking about. And so we set the goals, you come back and say, here's the projects we think hit those goals, and then we do a budget and we run with it. And then we need to, in reference to those goals, evaluate where we're at with the projects. Do you need more money? Do you need to adjust priorities? You know, whatever's going on, that we have that regular meeting. But I want to separate those two things, because that's, I think, where the staff comments came in, is really about
Setting the goal
goals.
part, you're right. And that was the year, I think, then we said, well, then let's go put how do we accomplish these goals, and staff filled in and that was a lengthy year, I think lengthier, that might have been our lengthiest year. We learned.
I think staff can provide input for ideas or suggestions that really could be, really beneficial to help you have goals. And I've seen in my previous city where staff was able to come to the table with ideas that the council agreed should be a goal, right? So I think that's, about being at the table, I think that's what it is. Ultimately, you're the policymaker, so you decide what gets, the priority, if you will.
Yeah.
But I think to do this, where staff can really contribute is to say, hey, here's some things that we're seeing or we think would be valuable, and here's why. And you as policymakers can decide, can decide whether you agree or not.
I think that gets more to your initial.
Yeah, well, and part of the problem is also that if we ask staff and we say, okay, can you do this with the staff that you have? And the answer is yes, the answer might be yes for that particular goal with the staff they have. But if you add 7 other goals,
Right.
and so it's, and I know that we have the sessions where we come back and do stuff, but anyway, we can chat about that as another work session, but I want to make sure that it's, I feel like we're really not using one of our greatest sources of information and knowledge of the city and what we have and all the other stuff by not including them more and figuring out, because if it is a question of, okay, well, yes, we can do this, but we've got to add 5 headcount to the team.
Yeah,
Anyway.
so,
All right.
so I want to get on to our next
Yeah,
agenda
sure.
item, so
Let's
we
do
can make sure we have a few minutes before the council meeting starts. So anything else on this from anybody else?
Well done.
Awesome. Okay, so the next item is discuss Family Justice Center funding. Keith.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah.
June 20th of this year, we had the Family Justice Center come to a presentation to the city council. During the presentation, they asked for the council to consider providing funding to Family Justice Center. During that meeting, the staff was asked to come back with a work session to discuss that request. As a reminder, what they said is that what the Family Justice Center said, just reading from our minutes, is that donations or contributions were in the range of $500 to $10,000. Both city provided a contribution in the $2,500 to $3,500 range. So during this, it was asked by multiple council members that there was an interest in this and to bring this back. So this is back before you for a discussion on Family Justice Center. If you would like to potentially contribute money to them to support their cause.
I'm supportive of understanding what our neighboring or other city partners have contributed and kind of getting that average bucket realm.
I would agree. It's an important service that's through the normal government channels is not handled very well. So I think it's important it's funded and we have these services available for our community.
Didn't we at one point contribute 5,000 to 10,000?
10,000 for 2 years, I spent 3 years, 3 years.
When I started it, we were asked for a 3-year pledge.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just a 3-year commitment. And then, so that bucket of money that we had allocated to that, when that was up, I redirected it over to the DA's office for our forensics lab, because we were partners in that. So as far as I knew, and the agreement was to get them up and running. And that was the agreement back then. So we never signed on for additional.
Is the funding expected to come from the police budget for this?
Wherever, so I take it from the general fund, primary general fund, that we've got other revenue streams, so. So
The original
so you have to
10,000?
other cities, Keith, what did you get an understanding, well, Tigers, Walton?
I didn't look into what they stated was that the average contribution for what they said was, this is the quote, amounts range from 500 to 10,000. Most cities contribute between $2,500 and $3,500 a year.
Yeah.
I'd like
So,
to see
I mean,
at least 5.
I think it's a critical service they provide, something that we as a city don't provide, services we don't have nonprofits in our city that provide. So I mean, it might sound like a small amount. I think they said they service 17 Sherwood. I mean, for the size of Sherwood, that's a lot of services that.
20, what they said is serve 17 people from Sherwood and provided 27 services.
Yeah.
I'd be for $5,000.
Yeah, say minimum 5.
But I would like to hear the concerns, because is there some concerns?
I think the concern I just would point out is that anytime you start doing it direct to any organization, you should expect other organizations to start coming. And I think the other thing would be when you start getting, whatever the amount we're comfortable with is, when you start giving amounts of money that are beyond what I would say are de minimis type amounts, that you might want to have some sort of minimum understanding that allows for us to potentially audit or to have skin in the game, if you will, to have a seat at the table. If we're going to be active and contributing, I think it's good for city council to be mindful that when you give money, if something were to happen, the city can receive some negative from the community saying, you know, what did you do to assure our taxpayer money? If we're at the $2,000 range, and I'll defer to the city attorney a little bit here too. I don't know if I'm concerned, but you start getting that $3,000 or $4,000, $5,000 range, I think you really should start to say there needs to be a little bit of,
More engaged process.
yeah.
Yeah, I agree with the thought that we should be getting something for a larger donation. I think seat at the table or whatever that looks like. I mean, at minimum, some annual reporting, some audit rights. So if we suspect something's going on, we can go in and audit.
That's right.
Which I think is, I wouldn't be surprised if some of the other cities around us have already done that.
And I can check on that. I mean, it could be a real base level contract. I mean, it's not subject to the public contracting rules, but we could look into it and see what we would figure out with that.
So that'd be my two concerns. Precedent you're setting and just making sure that whatever amount we give, we're comfortable that we're protecting ourselves.
Yeah, and I'm on this precedent wise, at least for me, I'd love to hear from other folks. This is such a unique service that is just not available in other forums. That I would have no problem turning down someone else. I was hypothetically. You know, and even if they said, well, you gave some money to this group, there's nothing out there that says we have to give money to everybody who asks.
No, I feel the same way. And especially because to Kim's point, we're essentially outsourcing something that we don't provide. The county doesn't, you know, all this stuff. And so in essence, we're outsourcing it to somebody to do it
Yeah,
when we don't want to.
your
or
money
can't.
goes a lot farther.
Yeah.
You know, somebody organizes it in one place, the money
Yeah.
goes a lot further than us trying to reinvent.
They do
Yeah.
some work.
It'd be $100 million project if Salem did it.
Yeah,
That would be okay. I think I would recommend also the $5,000 level. But finding out what kind of contract or language or how do we?
I don't know what their board structure like, counselor, but I mean, I would think at a minimum, like you were talking about, audit rights would be appropriate in a situation like that. I mean, just for.
Or having
Good
them come
governance.
back on an annual basis.
Yeah. Having them do it
for that. I don't,
It too.
unless somebody says they've got extra time, I don't
Yeah.
want to sit on another board.
No, I don't need to know another board either, but an annual report and then we could revisit it annually to see if we
Yeah.
continue it.
So there's a couple of things. Do we want to look at what the average is in the neighboring communities, or are we at the $5,000?
There's 4 or 5.
Yeah.
I'm at the average,
5,000 would be great for me.
average and find out the connections of what other cities ask of. Them, be it annual reports or audit rights or something.
I think we're overall at 5, but
But I
that's,
would be curious to know what
I think it'd be great to understand it.
Yeah,
And
you can just let us
I
know.
want to $1 more than Tiger.
5,001.
all right,
So I have.
anything else? All right, we've got 10 minutes before a regular session. We adjourn the work session. Thanks, everybody.
I didn't check it.
Go stand outside for 2 minutes, Renee.
Really good idea.
Not get a jacket out.
Thank you.
No, I don't check that.
Last idea where like these are.
Yeah, no,